When I walked into my master bedroom and found another woman's clothes in my closet, I knew my billionaire husband had crossed a line he could never uncross. But honey, what I did next, let's just say 30 days, was all it took to flip his whole world upside down. Before we dive into this tea, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you're about to hear a story that'll have you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and letting folks play in your face. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single detail of how I served justice on a silver platter. Y'all, my name is Candice, and 8 years ago, I thought I had married my fairy tale. Picture this: a successful Black woman who had just passed the bar exam, ready to take on the legal world, when I met this tech genius named Brandon. This man had vision, ambition, and a smile that could light up a room. He was building something from nothing, working 18-hour days in a cramped apartment, surviving on ramen noodles and dreams. I fell for his hustle before I fell for his money. Because back then, honey, there wasn't much money to fall for. But I saw something in him that maybe he didn't even see in himself yet. So when he asked me to believe in his vision, to support him while he built his empire, I didn't hesitate. I put my law career on hold, used my savings to help fund his startup, and became his biggest cheerleader, his strategist, his everything. And Lord, did we build something beautiful together. Within 5 years, his little tech company had grown into a billion-dollar empire. We went from that cramped apartment to a penthouse that overlooked the entire city. Designer clothes, private jets, charity galas, where people hung on our every word. I was living a life that little Black girls like me only dreamed about. But here's what nobody tells you about fairy tales. Sometimes the prince turns into the villain, and you don't realize it until you're already locked in the tower. The changes started small. Brandon began working even later, which I understood because success demands sacrifice. But then came the mysterious phone calls he'd take in another room, the weekend business trips that seemed to multiply, the way he'd suddenly close his laptop when I walked into his office. I'm not a fool, y'all. I'm an educated Black woman who grew up watching my mama navigate life with her eyes wide open. My intuition was screaming, but my heart kept making excuses. He's just stressed, I'd tell myself. Building an empire is hard work, but deep down, that little voice, you know the one, was getting louder every day. Then came Amber. Oh, Amber. Brandon started mentioning this brilliant marketing consultant he'd hired for some new project. Amber this, Amber that. Amber's so creative. Amber's so innovative. Amber's going to help take the company to the next level. At first, I was proud of my husband for recognizing talent and bringing fresh perspectives to his team. But then I started noticing things. The way his whole face would light up when her name came up in conversation. How he'd suddenly become interested in marketing strategies he'd never cared about before. The expensive bottles of wine that would disappear from our collection. Wine I knew Brandon didn't drink because he said it gave him headaches. My girlfriends tried to warn me. Girl, you need to pay attention. My best friend Trina would say during our lunch dates, that man is moving different. But I was so caught up in playing the perfect billionaire's wife, attending board meetings and charity functions, that I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. The wake-up call came on a Tuesday. I had spent the morning at the spa, getting my usual massage and facial, trying to relax because the stress was literally showing up on my skin. I decided to come home early to surprise Brandon with his favorite dinner. Maybe we could reconnect, I thought. Maybe I could shake this feeling that something was terribly wrong. I walked into our penthouse, and immediately something felt off. There was a perfume in the air that wasn't mine. Something floral and young, and definitely not the Tom Ford I'd been wearing for years. I set down my purse and listened. The apartment was quiet, but not the comfortable quiet of an empty home. This was the kind of quiet that felt heavy, like secrets were hiding in every corner. That's when I decided to go to our bedroom to change clothes. Y'all, I want you to understand something. This bedroom was my sanctuary. I had designed every inch of it. From the custom walk-in closet to the marble bathroom with the soaking tub that could fit two people comfortably, this was the space where Brandon and I had shared our dreams, our fears, our most intimate moments. This was supposed to be sacred. But when I opened that closet door, my whole world shifted. There, hanging next to my designer dresses, were clothes I had never seen before, young, trendy pieces that definitely weren't my style, size 6 when I wore a size 10. And not just one or two items, I'm talking about a whole wardrobe. Dresses, jeans, lingerie that still had tags on it, shoes and boxes stacked on my shoe shelf. My hands were shaking as I pulled out a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Size 6. The price tag was still attached, $1,500. I knew exactly who wore size 6. I knew exactly who would look good in red. Amber. The woman who was supposed to be helping my husband's business was living in my bedroom, wearing clothes my husband bought her, sleeping in my bed. I stood there in that closet for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, holding that red dress and feeling something I had never felt before. It wasn't just anger. Anger would have been simple. This was betrayal, mixed with disrespect, mixed with a rage so deep I could taste it in my mouth. But here's what y'all need to understand about me. I don't do messy. I don't scream and throw things and make a fool of myself. When I get mad, I get strategic. And standing in that closet, surrounded by another woman's belongings in my sacred space, I started planning. I carefully put the dress back where I found it. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Then I went to the living room, poured myself a glass of wine, the good wine that Brandon claimed gave him headaches, and sat down to wait. They came home around 7:30. I heard Brandon's key in the door, heard him talking to someone, heard a woman's laughter that made my stomach turn. When they walked into the living room, Brandon's face went white. But Amber, honey, Amber had the audacity to smile at me like we were old friends. Candice, Brandon stammered. You're home early. I thought you were at the spa all day. I was, I said, taking another sip of my wine. But I decided to come home to my bedroom, to my closet, to my space. I looked directly at Amber. Imagine my surprise at what I found there. The silence in that room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Brandon started with the lies immediately. Candice, I can explain. Amber needed somewhere to stay temporarily while she's working on this project. I thought the guest room would be the guest room, I interrupted, my voice calm but deadly. So why are her clothes in our bedroom closet? Amber finally spoke up, and y'all, the disrespect that came out of this woman's mouth was unbelievable. Look, Candice, I know this is awkward, but Brandon and I are in love. We didn't mean for it to happen, but sometimes these things just do. In love. In my living room. Wearing my husband's money. Brandon looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole, but he didn't deny it. He just stood there while his mistress announced their love affair in the home I helped build. So let me get this straight, I said, still maintaining my composure. You brought your girlfriend into our bedroom, bought her a whole wardrobe with our money, and now you're what? Asking me to accept this arrangement. Candice, please, we can work this out like adults, Brandon said. Maybe you could take the guest suite for a while, just until we figure things out. Y'all. This man really stood in our living room and suggested that I, his wife of 8 years, the woman who had sacrificed her career for his success, should move to the guest room so his mistress could be comfortable in our master bedroom. Amber was standing there looking smug, like she had already won some prize. And maybe she thought she had. Maybe she thought I would cry and beg and make a scene that would push Brandon further into her arms. But see, what they both failed to understand is that I didn't come from begging. I came from strategy. I came from understanding that the best revenge isn't served hot, it's served calculated and cold. You know what, Brandon? I said, finishing my wine and standing up. You're absolutely right. We should handle this like adults. I walked to my purse, pulled out my phone, and made a call right there in front of both of them. Hi, this is Candice Thompson. I need to schedule an appointment with Mr. Rodriguez first thing tomorrow morning. Yes, it's urgent. Tell him it's regarding the Thompson prenuptial agreement. The color drained from both their faces. See, what Amber didn't know was that I wasn't just Brandon's wife. I was also the woman with a law degree who had helped negotiate every major contract his company had signed. I knew exactly what was in our prenup, and more importantly, I knew what wasn't in it. Candice, wait, Brandon started, but I held up my hand. No, baby. You wait. You want to play house with your little girlfriend in my bedroom. Fine. But you're going to do it according to my rules now. I looked at both of them standing there like deer in headlights. Amber, sweetheart, I hope you enjoyed playing dress up in my closet. Because you've got 30 days to find somewhere else to store your wardrobe. Brandon, you've got the same 30 days to figure out if this is really the choice you want to make. What happens in 30 days? Amber asked. And for the first time since I'd met her, she didn't sound so confident. I smiled, not a friendly smile. The kind of smile that lawyers give right before they destroy you in court. In 30 days, either she's gone and we try to work on our marriage, or I'm gone and I'm taking half of everything with me. And honey, when I say everything, I mean everything. The next morning, I was sitting in my lawyer's office by 9 a.m. Mr. Rodriguez had been my mentor when I was fresh out of law school, and he knew exactly what kind of mind I had for detail. When I explained the situation, he just shook his head and smiled. Candice, I helped you review this prenup 8 years ago. Do you remember what you insisted on including? Of course, I remembered. I had insisted on an infidelity clause that would void the standard 50-50 split if either party could prove adultery. But more than that, I had insisted on language that protected my contributions to Brandon's business success during our marriage. He thinks because his name is on the company papers, I have no claim to what we built together, I told Mr. Rodriguez. But I have 8 years of emails, documents, and financial records that show exactly how involved I was in every major decision. We spent the next week building a case that was so airtight, it could have been used in law school textbooks. Every late-night strategy session I had participated in, every client dinner I had hosted, every investor meeting where my presence had helped close the deal, it was all documented. But the real breakthrough came when we started digging into the company's recent financial moves. Turns out, Brandon had been using company funds for more than just Amber's wardrobe. Private trips, expensive gifts, even a condo downtown that was supposed to be a corporate property but had only ever been used by him and his girlfriend. Meanwhile, at home, things were getting interesting. Amber had started to realize that being a billionaire's mistress was different when the wife wasn't going quietly into the night. Suddenly, all those romantic dinners out became awkward affairs where people stared and whispered. The social invitations stopped coming. Even some of Brandon's business associates started distancing themselves. You see, what Brandon had forgotten is that I wasn't just his wife. I was part of his brand. For 8 years, I had been the elegant, intelligent woman standing beside him at every important event. I was the one who charmed his investors' wives, who organized the charity galas that made him look like a philanthropic leader, who smoothed over the social connections that had helped his business thrive. Without me, he was just another tech billionaire with a messy personal life. The reality really hit when one of his biggest investors called a meeting. Mr. Chen had always liked me, and when news of the separation started making the rounds in our social circle, he wanted to understand what was happening. Brandon, he said, during what was supposed to be a routine business meeting, I have to ask, is it true that you're divorcing Candice for your marketing consultant? Brandon tried to explain, tried to make it sound like some mature, mutual decision. But Mr. Chen was old school. He believed in loyalty, in honoring commitments, in the kind of character that didn't abandon the people who helped you succeed. I'm concerned about your judgment, Mr. Chen said. If you can't honor your commitments in your personal life, how can I trust you with my business investments? That's when Brandon started to panic. That's when he realized that his personal choices were about to have professional consequences he hadn't considered. He came home that night to the guest room because I had changed the locks on our bedroom and tried to negotiate. Candice, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. Out of hand. I was sitting at our dining room table with legal documents spread out in front of me. Brandon, this is very much in hand. My hands, specifically. Look, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe we moved too fast with the separation talk. Can't we work this out? I looked at this man who had shared my bed for 8 years, who had held me when I cried, who had promised to love and cherish me until death do us part. This man who had thrown away everything we built together for a woman young enough to be his daughter. Where's Amber tonight? I asked. He couldn't meet my eyes. She needed some space to think. Ah, so now that the money train might be slowing down, she needs space to think. Interesting. The truth was, Amber had already started looking for an exit strategy. Word gets around fast in our social circle, and everyone knew that Brandon's business was about to take a hit. The preliminary divorce paper I had filed were public record, and the financial implications were becoming clear to anyone who could read a balance sheet. But I wasn't done yet. Brandon, you have 15 days left in your 30-day deadline. So let me ask you directly. Do you want to save our marriage? For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I had fallen in love with. The uncertainty, the fear, the realization that he might have made the biggest mistake of his life. Yes, he said quietly. I want to try. Then here's what's going to happen. Amber is gone by tomorrow night. Not next week, not when it's convenient, tomorrow. You're going to liquidate every gift you bought her and donate that money to charity. You're going to attend marriage counseling with me twice a week for the next 6 months. And you're going to sign an amended post-nuptial agreement that ensures this never happens again. He nodded eagerly, like a drowning man grabbing for a life preserver. But here's the thing, y'all. I wasn't trying to save our marriage. That ship had sailed the moment I found another woman's clothes in my closet. What I was doing was giving him enough rope to hang himself with. Because I knew Brandon, I knew that he didn't have the strength to do what needed to be done. I knew that asking him to choose between his wife and his mistress wouldn't result in him choosing me. It would result in him trying to have both until he got caught again. And I was right. 2 days later, I got a text message that was supposed to go to Amber, but came to me instead. Baby, I told her I would try to work things out, but you know you're the one I really want. Just give me a few more weeks to handle this situation. That text message was worth more than gold. It was breach of our reconciliation agreement. It was proof of continued infidelity. And it was the final nail in the coffin of any claim he might have had to a fair divorce settlement. I forwarded that text to Mr. Rodriguez with a single word: checkmate. The divorce proceedings after that were swift and brutal. Brandon tried to claim that he was the victim of entrapment, that I had manipulated him into that text message. But the judge wasn't interested in his excuses. When all was said and done, I walked away with 60% of everything: the penthouse, half the business, the vacation homes, the investment portfolio. Everything we had built together was finally being divided according to who had actually earned it. Brandon kept trying to reach out, kept insisting that we could still work things out. But I was already moving forward. I took my settlement money and started my own law firm, specializing in helping women navigate complex divorce situations. Turns out, there are a lot of successful women out there who need someone who understands both the legal and emotional complexity of untangling your life from someone who betrayed your trust. Amber, well, let's just say that dating a broke, bitter ex-billionaire wasn't nearly as appealing as dating a successful one. She moved on to her next opportunity within a month of the divorce being finalized. As for me, I'm living my best life. I have my own business, my own money, and most importantly, my own self-respect. I wake up every morning in a beautiful home that belongs entirely to me, and I never have to wonder if the man I'm sharing my bed with is texting someone else behind my back. The funny thing is, Brandon thought he was trading up when he chose Amber over me. He thought he was getting someone younger, more exciting, someone who would worship him the way I had stopped doing after 8 years of marriage. But what he actually did was trade a partner for a user, a woman who loved him for who he was, for a woman who loved him for what he could provide. And when he couldn't provide it anymore, well, we all saw how that story ended. Some people say I was cold, calculating, that I should have fought for my marriage instead of fighting for my freedom. But here's what I learned. You can't fight for someone who's already chosen to leave. You can only fight for yourself. And sometimes, fighting for yourself means refusing to accept less than you deserve, even when, especially when, that person is someone you love. Y'all, if this story taught you anything, let it be this. Never let anyone convince you to accept less than you deserve, especially in your own home. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have handled it differently? And don't forget to like this video if you love seeing justice served cold. Subscribe for more real stories about real women who refuse to be played. Until next time, keep your crown on and your standards high.